Captain Laura Mitchell stood at the observation deck of the USS Frontier, watching as the massive Thraxi ships approached Earth's orbital defense line. The alien vessels gleamed with a metallic purple sheen that seemed to absorb and reflect sunlight in ways human engineering couldn't match. She took a deep breath, straightening her uniform. "They're certainly making an entrance," said Dr. Alan Wright as he joined her at the viewport. The xenobiologist had spent the last 5 years studying the limited data they had on the Thraxi Imperium. "That's the point," Laura replied. "This isn't just a diplomatic meeting. It's a show of force." The year 2137 marked humanity's 15th year of expansion beyond Earth. Colonies on Mars housed over 50,000 people. The Moon had become a manufacturing hub. Space stations orbited key points in the solar system. Humanity had been making good progress. Or so they thought, until the Thraxi had arrived at the edge of the solar system 3 months ago. Commander Sam Rodriguez entered the deck, his security team's report in hand. "Captain, our scans detect 23 ships in their formation. The lead vessel is nearly twice the size of our largest battleship." Laura nodded. "And how many weapons?" "More than enough to level every human settlement from here to Mars," the communication system chimed. "Captain, the Thraxi ambassador is requesting permission to board for the scheduled diplomatic meeting." "Permission granted. Have them escorted to the conference room." Laura turned to her colleagues. "Let's go make history, gentlemen." The Thraxi delegation consisted of 5 beings, led by Ambassador Vex Talon. The ambassador stood nearly 7 feet tall with a slender frame covered in scales that shifted color slightly as they moved. 2 large eyes with vertical pupils scanned the room with obvious disdain. "Captain Mitchell, I presume," Vex Talon said, the translation software giving the words a metallic quality. "The Thraxi Imperium extends greetings to your species." Laura offered the diplomatic greeting they had been advised to use. "The people of Earth welcome the Thraxi and look forward to peaceful dialogue." The ambassador's scales flickered a shade of blue that Dr. Wright had warned might indicate amusement or possibly condescension. "Please be seated," Laura continued, gesturing to the conference table. Once everyone was seated, Dr. Wright activated the holographic display showing Earth's solar system. "As you can see, Ambassador, humanity has established a presence throughout our system, though we are still in early stages of expansion." Vex Talon waved a 6-fingered hand dismissively. "Yes, we have observed your development. Quite primitive, but determined. The Imperium has dealt with many emerging species like yours." Laura and Alan exchanged glances. "We're eager to establish trade relations," Laura said carefully. "We have resources that might be valuable." "The Imperium doesn't trade with protectorate worlds," Vex's Talon interrupted. "Earth will be granted protected status. Your military activities will cease. Your expansion will be regulated. In exchange, we offer technological advancement and security." Sam shifted in his seat. Laura could tell he was fighting to keep his expression neutral. "Protected status?" Dr. Wright asked. "We're not seeking protection." Vex Talon's scales rippled with dark patterns. "It is not offered as a choice, Dr. Wright. The galaxy is dangerous. Species at your development stage require guidance. With all due respect," Laura said, "Earth and its colonies are sovereign territories. We're open to alliance, not subjugation." The ambassador's translator struggled with a sound that might have been laughter. "Captain, you misunderstand your position. The Thraxi Imperium spans 300 star systems. We have encountered dozens of species like yours. Some choose cooperation, others—" He left the sentence unfinished. One of the Thraxi aides handed Vex Talon a device. The ambassador studied it for a moment, his expression changing to what Dr. Wright had identified as confusion. "You have unusual vessels in your system," Vex Talon said. "They do not match standard development patterns." Laura wasn't sure what he meant. "We have many types of ships serving different functions." "These," the ambassador said, projecting an image of several small, irregular spacecraft moving between Earth and the asteroid belt. "They do not follow uniform design principles. They appear chaotic." "Those are independent mining vessels," Sam explained. "They work the asteroid belt." Vex's Talon's aide whispered something to him, causing his scales to darken significantly. "Is something wrong, Ambassador?" Laura asked. "These vessels," Vextalon said, his tone somehow colder through the translator. "They are not regulated by your government?" "They follow safety protocols and orbital regulations," Laura explained, "but they're independently owned and operated. Many of our resource operations are handled by private citizens and companies." This seemed to disturb the Thraxi delegation deeply. They conferred among themselves in their own language for nearly a minute. When Vex's Talon turned back, his manner had changed. "Captain Mitchell, the Imperium finds your system's organization concerning. These irregular vessels, mining ships," Sam corrected. "They do not conform to proper fleet structure. They appear haphazard and unpredictable. This is unacceptable in a protectorate." Laura felt her patience wearing thin. "Ambassador, I need to be clear. Earth is not becoming a protectorate. We are open to peaceful relations as equals." The communication system suddenly chimed. "Captain, we're detecting power fluctuations in the Thraxi vessels. Their weapon systems appear to be cycling." Vex's Talon stood abruptly. "We must return to our ship. This meeting is concluded." "Ambassador," Laura said, rising as well, "if your ships are powering weapons in Earth space, that's an act of aggression." "It is merely a precaution," Vex's Talon replied. What did you call them? Mining ships? They are behaving erratically. The Imperium does not tolerate disorder." Dr. Wright stepped forward. "The miners are just doing their jobs. They pose no threat." The ambassador's scales had now turned a deep purple. "You allow these space goblins to operate without direct control. It speaks poorly of your civilization's readiness." "Space goblins?" Sam repeated, barely containing his anger. "Creatures of chaos," Vextalon said. "The Thraxi Imperium will return in 7 of your Earth days. You will have removed these irregular vessels from operation and prepared to accept protectorate status, or we will demonstrate why the Imperium has remained unchallenged for 12 centuries. With that, the Thraxi delegation departed, leaving the humans in stunned silence. Laura turned to her officers once the aliens had left. "Contact Earth Command immediately, and get me a direct line to the mining guild in the asteroid belt." "What's the plan, Captain?" Sam asked. Laura's expression was grim but determined. "The plan is to make sure these aliens understand that humanity doesn't bow to threats, and apparently our space goblins scare them. I want to know why." As they watched through the viewport, the massive Thraxi ships began moving away from Earth's orbit, their engines glowing with an eerie light. "They'll be back," Dr. Wright said quietly. "Yes," Laura agreed. "And we'll be ready." Outside the ship, the space goblins continued their work, unaware that they had just become humanity's most unexpected asset in the face of an alien threat. Jack Harris wiped grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. The engine room of his mining vessel, the Lucky Strike, was cramped and hot, filled with the hum of machinery. Jack had spent 15 years in the asteroid belt, carving out a living from the rocks that floated between Mars and Jupiter. His ship wasn't pretty, but it worked. "Jack, you need to see this," called Olivia Chen from the cockpit. Her voice carried the urgency that made Jack move quickly through the narrow corridor. "What's up, Liv?" he asked as he entered the small control room. Olivia pointed to the communication screen. "Message from Earth Command. Priority 1. Jack frowned. In all his years mining, he'd never received a Priority 1 message. He pressed the screen and Captain Laura Mitchell's face appeared. "This is Captain Mitchell of the USS Frontier to all mining vessels in the belt. We have a situation. The Thraxi Imperium has issued threats against Earth and specifically mentioned the mining fleet as a point of concern. All mining ship captains are requested to join an emergency meeting in 2 hours. Coordinates attached. Mitchell out." Jack and Olivia looked at each other. "The who did what now?" Jack asked. Olivia shrugged. "Aliens, I guess, and apparently they don't like us." "Us specifically? The miners?" Jack scratched his beard. "That's a first." 2 hours later, the Lucky Strike docked with a dozen other mining vessels at an emergency meeting point. Jack had never seen so many mining ships gathered in one place. They were all different shapes and sizes, built from whatever parts their captains could find or afford. Some were sleek with newer components, while others like his own were clearly pieced together over years of hard work. Inside the meeting area was Captain Mitchell, along with her science officer and security chief. The room filled quickly with miners, all curious and concerned. "Thank you all for coming," Laura began. 3 days ago, we had our first official meeting with an alien civilization called the Thraxi Imperium. It didn't go well, she explained. The meeting and the Thraxis demands that Earth become a protected territory, essentially giving up its independence. "What's this got to do with us?" asked a miner from the back of the room. "The Thraxi were particularly disturbed by your ships," Laura said. "They called you space goblins and demanded that all independent mining operations cease immediately." This brought a wave of angry comments from the miners. Ben Foster, a former military communications specialist who had joined the mining fleet 5 years ago, raised his hand. "Captain, did they say why our ships bothered them so much?" Dr. Wright stepped forward. "From what we can tell, the Thraxi have a rigid social structure. Everything in their society follows strict patterns and rules. Your mining ships don't fit any pattern they recognize." "Because we build them ourselves," Olivia said. "Each one is different." "Exactly," Dr. Wright nodded. "And that seems to disturb them deeply." Jack looked around at his fellow miners. Their ships were odd-looking compared to the sleek military vessels or the uniformed transport ships that traveled between Earth and its colonies. Mining ships needed to be tough and adaptable. They had extra shielding in some places, powerful cutting lasers for breaking up asteroids, magnetic grapples for securing valuable rocks, and all sorts of custom modifications. "So what do they expect us to do?" Jack asked. "Just stop working? Give up our ships?" "They expect Earth to surrender," Commander Rodriguez said bluntly, "and they're coming back in 4 days with their answer." Laura stepped forward again. "Earth Command is preparing our defenses, but we're outgunned. The Thraxi fleet is massive and far more advanced than ours." "Then why are we here?" asked another miner. "What can we do against alien warships?" Laura glanced at her security chief, who nodded. "We have an idea, but it's risky and completely voluntary. We believe your mining ships might actually be our secret weapon." The room grew quiet. "The Thraxi can't understand your ships because they don't follow standard design logic," Laura continued. "They expect military vessels to look and behave in certain ways. Your ships don't fit those expectations." Ben Foster stood up. "You want to use our mining ships against their warships? That's suicide." "Not necessarily," Olivia said, surprising everyone. "Our ships have some advantages. We're smaller, more maneuverable, and our equipment could be repurposed." Jack understood immediately what she meant. "The cutting lasers we use on asteroids, the magnetic grapples." Olivia nodded excitedly. "Exactly. We're not built for fighting, but we're built for surviving in the belt. That means heavy shielding against micrometeorites, powerful engines for maneuvering around asteroids. And most importantly," Laura added, "the Thraxi don't know what you're capable of." The meeting continued as they discussed possibilities. Some miners wanted nothing to do with the plan, but most, including Jack, saw no choice. If Earth fell, the mining operations would be next. Over the next 3 days, the mining fleet underwent a transformation. Olivia led a team of engineers who modified mining equipment into makeshift weapons. Cutting lasers were reconfigured to focus their beams more intensely. Drills were sharpened and reinforced to potentially breach hull plating. Sensor arrays meant for finding mineral deposits were reprogrammed to scan for weaknesses in ship defenses. Ben Foster worked with military personnel to develop communication protocols and basic tactics. The miners were fiercely independent, but they needed to work together if they had any chance against the Thraxi. Greg Thompson, a former racer who had turned to mining when injuries ended his career, taught the other miners evasive maneuvers. His ship, Swift Prophet, was the fastest in the belt, and he knew how to squeeze every bit of speed from an engine. "They'll expect us to fight like proper military vessels," Greg explained as he ran simulations for the other captains. "We don't do that. We zip in, we cause trouble, we get out. On the evening before the Thraxi were due to return, Jack sat in the Lucky Strike's cockpit, looking out at the gathered mining fleet. Nearly 80 ships of all shapes and sizes floated in formation, their running lights creating a sea of stars against the darkness of space. Olivia joined him, sitting in the co-pilot seat. "Do you think we have a chance?" she asked quietly. Jack considered the question. "The way I see it, we're space goblins now. And if there's one thing I know about goblins from old stories, it's that you should never underestimate them." Olivia smiled. "I like that." The communication system beeped. Laura Mitchell's face appeared on screen. "All ships, this is Captain Mitchell. The Thraxi fleet has been detected entering the solar system. They'll reach Earth orbit in 12 hours. Get some rest. Tomorrow we show them what Earth's space goblins can do." Jack looked at his transformed ship, then out at the fleet of mismatched vessels crewed by the toughest people he knew. Tomorrow would decide everything. Admiral Caroline West stood in Earth's Orbital Defense Command Center, watching as the massive Thraxi fleet approached. Dozens of screens showed the alien vessels, their purple-tinged hulls gleaming in the sunlight as they moved into position. Around Earth, the atmosphere in the command center was tense, with officers working silently at their stations. "They're not wasting any time," said a voice behind her. Admiral West turned to see Captain Laura Mitchell, who had just arrived from the USS Frontier. "No, they're not," West agreed. 23 ships in perfect formation, just like you reported." Laura looked at the main display, which showed the Thraxi ships arranging themselves in a precise pattern around Earth. "Have they made contact yet?" "Not yet. But they will. They want us to sweat first." On the screen, a small alert appeared. One of the officers called out, "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Thraxi flagship." "Put it through," West ordered. Ambassador Vex Talon's face appeared on the screen, his scales a deep, confident purple. "People of Earth, the time for your decision has arrived. The Thraxi Imperium awaits your acceptance of protectorate status. Your military vessels will stand down and your irregular mining craft will cease operations immediately." Admiral West stepped forward. "Ambassador, this is Admiral Caroline West of Earth Defense Force. Earth respectfully declines protectorate status. We remain open to peaceful relations as equals." Vex Talon's scales rippled. "You misunderstand, Admiral. This is not a negotiation. You have 1 Earth hour to reconsider before we demonstrate the consequences of defiance." The screen went black. "Well, that went about as expected," West said calmly. She turned to her communications officer. "Signal the mining fleet. Operation Space Goblin is a go." Far from Earth, hidden among the natural debris of space, the mining fleet waited. Jack Harris received the signal in the Lucky Strike's cockpit. "This is it," he said to Olivia, who was making final adjustments to their modified mining equipment. Admiral West just gave the green light. Olivia finished tightening a connection on what had once been a mineral cutter, but was now reconfigured into a device that could potentially disrupt Thraxi ship systems. Ready as we'll ever be, Jack opened the fleet-wide communication channel. "All right, Goblins, you know the plan. Groups 1 through 5 prepare to move on my mark." The mining ships had been divided into smaller teams, each with specific targets and missions. Some would create distractions, others would test the Thraxi defenses. A few would attempt to gather intelligence on the alien ship's weaknesses. Linda Ramirez, the weapons specialist who had helped adapt their mining tools, checked in from her ship. "All weapon systems are online. Remember, we're not trying to destroy. They're ships. We're looking to disable and disrupt." Greg Thompson's voice came next. "Stick to the flight patterns we practiced. They expect military formations. We do the opposite." In Earth's command center, Admiral West watched as the hour ticked away. With 5 minutes remaining, she gave the order. "Launch the defense fleet." Earth's military ships moved into position, forming a protective line between the planet and the Thraxi fleet. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they only needed to hold the aliens' attention. Ambassador Vex Talon's face appeared again on the command center screen. "Your time has expired, Admiral. Your response? Our answer remains the same, Ambassador. Earth will not surrender its independence. Vextalon's scales darkened. Then witnessed the might of the Thraxi Imperium. The alien ships began powering up. Their weapon systems. Energy readings spiked across the monitoring stations in the command center. Steady, Admiral West told her officers. Wait for it. Just as the Thraxi ships prepared to fire, alerts sounded across the alien fleet. Jack Harris gave the command, and the mining fleet sprung into action. The space around the Thraxi suddenly filled with strange, irregular vessels appearing from all directions. They didn't move in formation, but instead darted about unpredictably, like insects swarming a larger creature. In the Thraxi flagship, confusion reigned. What are these vessels doing? Vextalon demanded of his officers. Why are they not following proper engagement protocols? The mining ships zipped between the larger Thraxi vessels, their paths chaotic and seemingly random. Greg Thompson led a group of the fastest ships in quick passes near the flagship sensor arrays, causing the Thraxi targeting systems to constantly recalibrate. Other mining vessels released clouds of mineral debris, normally used to hide valuable asteroids from competing miners, which now confused the Thraxi scanners. Jack and Olivia piloted the Lucky Strike close to one of the smaller Thraxi ships. Activating the disruptor now, Olivia said, engaging their modified mining cutter. The device sent out a pulse that temporarily interfered with the Thraxi ship's shield generators, a discovery they had made by analyzing the data from the first encounter. The shield flickered just long enough for Linda Ramirez's ship to target the exposed hull with a magnetic grapple, attaching a small device before quickly retreating. Package delivered, Linda reported. Ben Foster coordinated the communications between the scattered mining ships, making sure their attacks remained unpredictable. Group 3 moved to Sector 7. Group 5 begins Sequence B. Aboard the Thraxi flagship, Vextalon watched in growing rage as his perfect battle formation was thrown into disarray by the swarming mining vessels. These goblins are not fighting properly, he hissed. Target their largest vessels first. But the mining ships presented no clear targets. Unlike military vessels, they didn't protect their largest ships or follow any recognizable tactics. Each acted independently while somehow remaining part of the greater whole. In Earth's command center, Admiral West allowed herself a small smile. Launch Phase 2, she ordered. Earth's military ships began a coordinated attack on the distracted Thraxi vessels. With the aliens' attention divided between the proper military threat and the chaotic mining ships, their defensive capabilities were compromised. Jack's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, we've identified a weakness. Their shield systems operate on frequencies similar to certain mineral deposits we work with. Our scanners can detect fluctuations when they're under stress. This was exactly the kind of information they needed. Excellent work, Harris. All ships target those fluctuations. The battle continued to rage, with the mining fleet darting in and out of the fight like a swarm of angry insects. They were taking damage. 3 mining vessels had already been disabled by Thraxi weapons, but they were causing far more confusion than their size would suggest possible. Vextalon was furious. This is not how combat is conducted. They must form proper battle lines. One of his officers replied, Sir, we cannot predict their movements. They do not follow any tactical patterns in our database. On the Lucky Strike, Jack and Olivia celebrated a small victory as they watched a Thraxi weapon system go offline after their modified disruptor hit its mark. The space goblins are giving them hell, Jack said with a grim smile. And we're just getting started, Olivia replied, preparing their next attack run. The battle for Earth had begun in earnest, and the Thraxi were learning a painful lesson. Sometimes chaos was the most effective strategy of all. The battle had been raging for 3 hours. The space around Earth was filled with flashes of weapon fire, disabled ships, and the constant movement of the mining vessels weaving between the larger Thraxi warships. Earth's military fleet had taken heavy losses, but they had managed to disable 2 of the Thraxi vessels. The mining fleet, now proudly calling themselves the Space Goblin Brigade, continued their chaotic attacks. On the USS Frontier, Captain Laura Mitchell watched the tactical display with Dr. Alan Wright and Commander Sam Rodriguez. "The miners are doing better than we expected," Sam said, pointing to a cluster of small ships that had just successfully disrupted a Thraxi cruiser's weapon system. Laura nodded. "But the Thraxi are adapting. Look." The display showed several Thraxi ships changing their tactics, spreading out to create a wider defense net against the swarming mining vessels. "They're learning," Dr. Wright observed. "That's what makes them dangerous." The communication system crackled to life. "Captain Mitchell, this is Admiral West. The Thraxi flagship is changing position. Our analysts believe they're preparing to target Earth directly." Laura's blood ran cold. "They wouldn't." "They would," Sam said grimly. "If they can't win by the rules they understand, they'll change the game." Laura studied the tactical display. The Thraxi flagship was indeed moving into a position that would give it a clear firing line to Earth's surface. If they targeted major cities, the loss of life would be catastrophic. "We need to disable that flagship," Laura said. "Admiral, request permission to lead an assault team." "Negative, Captain," West replied. "You're needed on the Frontier, but I agree we need to hit that flagship. I'm sending Commander Rodriguez with a team." Sam straightened. "I'll prepare immediately." As Sam left to gather his team, Laura turned to Dr. Wright. "We need to buy them time. Contact Jack Harris and the mining fleet. We need a diversion." In the asteroid belt, Jack Harris and his fellow miners had been watching the battle through their long-range sensors. When Captain Mitchell's call came through, Jack immediately gathered his team leaders. "The Thraxi flagship is targeting Earth," he told them. "The military is sending a strike team, but they need us to create a diversion." Olivia looked at the tactical display Jack had pulled up. "The flagship has the heaviest shielding we've seen. How do we get their attention?" Greg Thompson smiled. "We've been avoiding the debris field near Orbital Station 5. But if we use it right, it becomes a weapon." Linda Ramirez finished his thought. "We could use our magnetic grapples to direct some of the larger pieces." Ben Foster nodded. "And if we time it with some of our mining charges placed strategically." Jack clasped his hands together. "That's it. The Thraxi hate disorder, right? Let's give them a mess they can't ignore." The plan came together quickly. 20 mining ships, led by Greg Thompson, would use their speed to race through the debris field, disrupting it and directing larger pieces toward the space around the Thraxi flagship. Meanwhile, Jack, Olivia, and Linda would lead another group to plant modified mining charges on key pieces of debris. "Remember," Jack told the fleet, "we're not trying to destroy the flagship. We just need to create enough chaos to keep them busy and lower their shields for the military strike team." The mining fleet jumped into action. Greg's ships darted through the debris field at speeds that would make most pilots nervous. The miners were used to navigating tight spaces at high velocity. It was part of their daily work. As the debris began to move, the Thraxi noticed. Their precise formations started to shift as they tracked the new threat. "It's working," Ben reported from his communication hub. "Their sensors are registering the debris movement. They're diverting resources to track it." On the Thraxi flagship, Ambassador Vex Talon was growing increasingly frustrated. "These humans fight without honor or pattern. Now they are creating more chaos with space debris. Target those mining vessels." His tactical officer responded, "Ambassador, targeting the mining vessels is proving difficult. They move too erratically, and now they are using the debris as cover." Vex Talon's scales turned a deep red with anger. "Continue the approach to target the planet. They cannot save everyone." Meanwhile, Commander Sam Rodriguez and his strike team had boarded a small, swift vessel from the USS Frontier. They carried specialized equipment designed to disable rather than destroy the Thraxi flagship. "The miners are creating the diversion," Sam told his team. "We need to approach from the blind spot created by the debris cloud and dock with the flagship. Dr. Wright believes their shields will have to modulate to deal with the debris impacts, creating brief windows we can exploit." The strike team's ship accelerated toward the Thraxi flagship, using the confusion of the battle as cover. Sam watched as the mining fleet executed their plan perfectly. The debris field was now a swirling chaos around the flagship, forcing the Thraxi to constantly adjust their shields and weapon systems. Jack's voice came through the communication system. "Commander, we're about to detonate the mining charges. This should create your window in approximately 30 seconds. "Understood," Sam replied. "We're in position." On the lucky strike, Jack and Olivia watched the timer count down. Detonation in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The charges exploded simultaneously, sending shockwaves through the debris field. The carefully placed explosions created a chain reaction, forcing the Thraxi flagship to suddenly deal with impacts from multiple directions. "Now, Commander!" Jack shouted. Sam's team shot forward, their small vessel aiming for a docking port on the flagship's underside. As predicted, the Thraxi shields fluctuated as they tried to adjust to the debris pattern, creating a brief opening. The strike team's ship slipped through, making contact with the hull. Sam and his team quickly attached their boarding equipment, modified versions of the miners' drilling tools. "We're attached," Sam reported. "Beginning entry procedures." Inside the Thraxi flagship, alarms blared. Vex Talon received the report with disbelief. "Humans have boarded the flagship. Impossible. Our shields are the strongest in the fleet," his security officer replied. "They used the debris impacts to predict our shield modulations. This is not in any tactical manual." On Earth, Admiral West received Sam's communication. "Strike team is aboard the flagship. Phase 3 is go." Laura Mitchell turned to Dr. Wright. "Now we just need to keep them busy a little longer." Jack Harris and the mining fleet continued their assault, drawing as much Thraxi attention as possible, while Sam's team worked inside the flagship. The miners had taken losses, 6 ships destroyed and several more damaged, but they fought on with the determination that had helped them survive the harsh conditions of the asteroid belt for years. "Hold on just a bit longer," Jack told his fellow miners. "Earth is counting on us." Inside the Thraxi flagship, Sam and his team moved through the corridors, following the schematics Dr. Wright had pieced together from sensor data. They encountered resistance but managed to fight their way toward the ship's main control systems. The fate of Earth now hung in the balance, with humans and their space goblins fighting against an enemy that had never faced such unpredictable opponents. Commander Sam Rodriguez and his team moved carefully through the corridors of the Thraxi flagship. The alien vessel was eerily quiet compared to the chaos outside. The walls were smooth and purple, with pulsing lights that followed perfect patterns. Everything about the ship reflected the Thraxi love of order. "Main control should be 2 levels up," Sam told his team, checking the rough map Dr. Wright had provided. "Remember, we're not here to destroy the ship. We just need to disable their weapons and shields." One of his team members, a tech specialist named Paul, studied a device in his hand. "I'm picking up a power signature that matches what Dr. Wright described as their central control system. It's directly above us." The team found an access shaft and began climbing. Outside, the battle continued to rage as Jack Harris and the mining fleet kept the Thraxi distracted. On the lucky strike, Jack watched as Greg Thompson's faster ships continued to harass the Thraxi vessels with quick attacks followed by rapid retreats. Olivia had rigged up a makeshift communications relay that let them stay in contact, despite the Thraxi attempts to jam their signals. "How much longer do you think Commander Rodriguez needs?" Olivia asked, wincing as a nearby mining vessel took a hit from a Thraxi weapon. "Not long now," Jack replied, hoping he was right. The mining fleet couldn't keep this up forever. They had already lost 9 ships, with many more damaged. Ben Foster's voice came through the communication system. "Jack, I'm picking up increased energy readings from the flagship. I think they're preparing to fire on Earth despite our interference." Jack's heart sank. "All ships focus on the flagship. We need to keep their weapons systems busy." Inside the Thraxi flagship, Sam's team reached the central control room door. 2 Thraxi guards stood watch, their scaled skin shifting colors as they noticed the humans. "On my mark," Sam whispered to his team. They had trained for this, using non-lethal weapons designed to incapacitate rather than kill. 3, 2, 1, now! The team rushed forward. The guards were taken by surprise, clearly not expecting humans to be inside their ship. Within moments, the guards were unconscious, and Sam's team was working on the door. "I can override it," Paul said, attaching a device to the door's control panel. "But they'll know we're here." Sam nodded. "Speed is more important than stealth now." The door slid open, revealing a large circular room filled with Thraxi officers working at stations arranged in a perfect circle. In the center stood Ambassador Vex Talon, his scales a deep angry red. The ambassador turned, his vertical pupils narrowing as he saw the humans. "How dare you board a flagship of the Imperium?" he hissed. "This ends now," Sam said, his team spreading out, weapons ready. "Order your fleet to stand down." Vex Talon's scales rippled with what might have been laughter. "You are in no position to make demands, human. My ship is about to demonstrate the price of defiance." On a large display behind him, Sam could see Earth, beautiful and blue. Power readings on the Thraxi consoles were climbing as their main weapon prepared to fire. "Now, Paul," Sam ordered. The tech specialist activated a device Dr. Wright had designed based on the miner's discovery about Thraxi shield frequencies. A high-pitched sound filled the room, causing the Thraxi to clutch at the sides of their heads. The control room displays flickered and went dark. Outside, Jack Harris watched in amazement as the lights on the Thraxi flagship suddenly dimmed. "They did it!" he exclaimed. Ben's voice came through the communication system. "All Thraxi ships are receiving signals from a secondary command vessel. They're adjusting formation." Laura Mitchell's voice joined the channel. "This is Captain Mitchell. The Thraxi secondary commander is requesting communication. Admiral West is speaking with them now." In the flagship's control room, Sam and his team had secured the Thraxi officers. Ambassador Vex Talon stood with his hands bound, his scales now a pale, defeated blue. "You do not fight according to proper protocols," Vex Talon said, his voice lacking its former confidence. "Your mining vessels do not follow tactical doctrines. Your boarding team used frequencies that should not affect our systems. None of this follows the rules of engagement." Sam smiled slightly. "That's humanity for you, Ambassador. We don't always follow the rules." Dr. Wright's voice came through Sam's communication device. "Commander, the Thraxi secondary commander is requesting a ceasefire. It seems with the flagship disabled, their chain of command is in disarray." "Understood," Sam replied. "We've secured Ambassador Vex Talon and the control room." In Earth's orbital command center, Admiral West was speaking with the Thraxi secondary commander, a slightly smaller alien whose scales showed a more greenish tint. "The flagship has fallen," the Thraxi said, clearly uncomfortable. "This was not in our tactical projections. The space goblins fought improperly." Admiral West kept her expression neutral. "We call it innovation, Commander. Now shall we discuss terms?" The Thraxi hesitated, then nodded. "The Imperium will withdraw from your system. Your planet, your Earth, will not be classified as a protectorate at this time." 3 days later, Jack Harris stood in a large hall at Earth's Defense Headquarters. Beside him were Olivia, Ben, Greg, Linda, and dozens of other miners. Across from them stood Captain Laura Mitchell, Dr. Wright, Commander Rodriguez, and Admiral West. The hall was filled with military personnel and government officials. Admiral West stepped forward. "Today we recognize the brave men and women who defended Earth against the Thraxi Imperium. In particular, we honor the mining fleet, whose unconventional tactics and courage turned the tide of battle." Jack felt somewhat uncomfortable in his clean uniform. Miners weren't used to ceremonies and formal recognition. They were used to being overlooked, doing the dangerous, dirty work of extracting resources from the asteroid belt while others took the glory. Laura Mitchell approached the miners, a smile on her face. "The Thraxi have agreed to recognize Earth's sovereignty and establish diplomatic relations on equal terms. Their diplomat specifically requested that the space goblins be part of future negotiations." Jack raised an eyebrow. "They want us there? I thought they hated our ships. They fear what they don't understand," Dr. Wright explained. But they also respect strength. Your mining fleet showed them a kind of strength they had never encountered before. Olivia grinned. So we're officially space goblins now? Admiral West nodded. The Mining Fleet Special Division, informally known as the Space Goblin Brigade. With your permission, of course. Jack looked at his fellow miners, seeing pride in their faces. They had saved Earth by being exactly who they were. Independent, resourceful, and unpredictable. Space goblins it is, Jack said, extending his hand to the Admiral. But we're keeping our ships exactly as they are. No standardizing, no regulations on design. Admiral West shook his hand firmly. We wouldn't have it any other way. After all, it was your chaos that saved us all. Outside the hall, in Earth orbit, the mining vessels floated alongside the military ships, different but united. And somewhere, out there, the Thraxi Imperium was learning an important lesson about a small blue planet and its unexpectedly formidable defenders, humans, and their beloved space goblins.